Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are privileged and honored to present to you a webinar on AI solutions for SAP, smarter decisions for complex data. Today, our panelists will be me, Jeff Ward. I'll do a little bit of driving, and then I will turn this over to my esteemed colleagues, Ashley Wilson, who is a solution engineer for Decisions, and Stephen Branch, who is Director of Revenue Operations for Configurable Management. Our agenda today will be covering the following. We're going to be doing some decisions for SAP solutions, some stuff that Stephen and Configurable Management have configured. We're going to do a little bit of introduction to AI. We're also going to do some AI orchestration, show you how to leverage AI in a workflow, in an orchestration workflow. And then we're going to do some AI features and decisions for specific SAP solutions, and we're going to demonstrate that accordingly. If you do have any questions, if you do have anything that you would like for us to discuss as we get started, I would invite you to put that in the chat, and we will go from there. Stephen, you're up, baby.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Again, my name is Stephen Branch with Configurable Management, Decisions for SAP Solutions is kind of our flagship product, and it's powered by Decisions. So if you're familiar with Decisions, you're familiar with Decisions for SAP Solutions. We'll talk a little bit more about exactly what Decisions for SAP Solutions is, but at the end of the day, we're all about process automation, data handling, and business rules execution within solutions. Next slide, Jeff. So we're an SAP partner. We've been in the SAP space for a long time. About 15 years ago, originally we would do SAP implementations, data migrations, that sort of stuff. And about 15 years ago, we kind of organically transitioned into data quality, process automation, and application development. And that's really primarily what we do today. So there are some common use cases that we run across. Master data governance is probably the most common thing that we do. We have something we call active data governance, and that is just basically ensuring the data that's in SAP follows all of your business rules, identifying maybe data that doesn't follow your business rules, and surfacing that data to your data stewards so it can be corrected. We've done things like excess and obsolete inventory dispositioning, some RPA stuff, capital expense request and budget management. If you're in the oil and gas field, you see the acronym AFE, that stands for Application for Expenditure. So if you're familiar with that process, we do that as well. And we've helped companies with PR and PO release strategy management outside of SAP.
Stephen, while we're on this slide, I would ask, so, in leveraging Decisions, what do you see with clients that are having challenges with data governance, with master data governance? What do you see that we add value to from that perspective?
Well, we can ensure that you get your data 100% accurate into SAP 100% of the time. So at the end of the day, data is king. If it's incorrect, it's going to cause problems. Gotcha. And then along with that, the active data governance ensures that we can ensure you get it into SAP correct, but what we can ensure is people don't go into SAP and make changes to that data that maybe falls outside of your business rules. So with active data governance, we can help you maintain the accuracy of your data.
So that's sort of like Ashley not letting me have access to the back end of Decisions because I might break something. So this would give her the ability to control what I play with in the sandbox, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah, everything is very permissions based, right? So we can get very granular on who can do what and when.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, so this next slide just talks about other use cases. We've done things like if you're familiar with SAP variant configuration, that configure price quote application was for a SAP Business One client that needed the equivalent of SAP variant configuration. So with Decisions for SAP Solutions, we built them a complete CPQ process. sales sample, vendor rebates. What I want you to take away from these two slides that we've just seen is if you have a manual process that you need control of and visibility into, whether it's SAP related or not, there's near 100% chance we can automate that for you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about how we integrate with SAP. We integrate with SAP through SAP's .NET API. So all SAP authorization protocols are followed. If you can't do it in SAP, you can't do it through Decisions for SAP either. We leverage primarily BOPI's remote function modules, OData services. We can also build transactional BDCs if we need to. And we deliver some pre-built dropdowns with Decisions for SAP. So what that means is if you think about like unit of measure, there's a little workflow that we build that'll go give you a list to drop down for units of measure. Well, with Decisions, you only have to build that workflow one time. You can use it anywhere you need to use unit of measure. And so with Decisions, it's a build once, use often approach for business rules, for forms, for workflow components, various things. We also have a few custom SAP programs if you want them. MRP areas, if you're familiar with that. There's really no remote function modules or BOPIs for MRP areas. There are some standard function modules, so we've remote enabled those. We've also built customer and vendor solutions for ECC. And we'll talk about Bopimatic and Scriptonite and Wingman later on in the presentation.
We're going to introduce a little bit of AI, a little bit of magic and excitement.
Exactly. So this is kind of this, these next few slides are going to be more or less a AI 101. So if you're not familiar with all the components of AI, this will be very helpful for you. So the first thing we're going to talk about is large language model. And basically that's an AI system that's trained to understand and generate human language. So you ask it a question and it can respond. It tries to predict maybe the next word or the next sentence. But it's essentially a technology called natural language processing. So it can be used to streamline operations and enhance decisions and drive innovations. So how do they add value? Well, obviously they're versatile in knowledge retrieval. So you can summarize documents, you can answer questions, you can generate detailed responses. You can even take a document and have it respond in JSON. So there's a lot of capability there. It's very adaptable and it's scalable. And you see here some common large language examples, GPT, Claude, Palm 2. So those are just some examples.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So common use cases, we kind of talked about this a little bit, document summarization. AI products have extensive world knowledge, so they can add a lot of value in key areas. So it's adaptable. It can be very focused on specific industries. You can even train it about your specific business or your company, and it can become an expert in that area. So they're good at summarizing data and data extraction. So there's a lot of different ways you can use it. You can build chat bots to use for customer support, or you could translate documents into different languages and build content. So there's a variation of just different LLM use cases.
And the list could go on and on and on as we apply it.
We could
more
talk
and more.
a long time. Yeah, we could talk a long time on these bullets.
For sure.
So we'll talk a little bit about some different AI services. Agents. Agents are very specific to chatbots. For example, you could use a chatbot that could perform an action. A good use case would maybe to look up data from your support ticket database. Somebody asks a question, you go look and see if you've solved that before and provide them an answer directly from an AI chatbot. Assistants or agents are known as kind of chat completion APIs. Probably the most commonly used are going to be the assistants. So and you can also do reasoning. Um, so you can look at
Gotcha.
accuracy and, maybe you don't always get the greatest response from just a normal response. So you could actually use um, completions or reasoning rather to actually think about the question before it responds an answer. So you get a more human-like response. So if you use reasoning, if you just used a general chat bot, it's going to give you whatever, it may not be exactly what you want, but with reasoning, you can refine that response. And then there's something called embeddings, and we'll talk a little bit more about embeddings a little later.
And so, Stephen, I would argue that like if we're going to use AI in an SAP environment or for some type of one of your clients or prospect, that you would consider maybe using a closed sourced type API model so that I could be leveraging data that my company has for clients, for accounting, for you name it, rather than going out and educating a large language model in the general public, if you will.
Absolutely. But the nice thing is also in the demo we're going to use is just using all real basic stuff, right? We're going to demonstrate receiving an invoice into SAP, and it's using all very straightforward applications. So you can get as refined as you want, or you can use some basic functionality. Great question.
Fantastic. Thank you. Vector databases and embeddings. This should be fun.
Yes. So vector databases are a special kind of database. And it really designed to store high dimensional vectors. So they can be used for text or images or audio. So it's not your typical SQL type database. Their vector databases are designed for artificial intelligence and embeddings. So this is kind of an example of what an embedding might look like. You see a little boy is walking, a little boy is running, a man is walking in the field. And off to the right, you see just numeric values. So that's how vector databases store this high dimensional data. It's a series of numbers. So if I said, hey, find me something that's like a little boy walking, I might get all three of these returns, right? So it really stores similar data closely together in the database. You can plot this high dimensional database information. So they're very similar, not the same. So you can find the meaning of words, and it'll do word match based meaning, not like a string in a typical database, but more an example of workflow you might go about using an embedded model. Let's say you take it and sort it in a vector database. When someone's searching, the same process, you might find the closest matches and present those matches to them, or you can get really refined.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
And so this slide really kind of gives you a pictorial, if you will, of the difference between a traditional database and a vector database. So traditional databases are more around text, numbers, and date and time, where vector databases are going to help you manage images, audio files, videos, long unstructured text, and sensor data. So hopefully this is kind of helpful on, what's the difference between a traditional database that we might be using and a vector database.
Very helpful. Thank you.
There's a bunch of different vector databases. So a lot of options out there. If you were to go Google it, you're going to find all kinds of things, right? But at the end of the day, there's really only about 4 that specialize in vector databases, and they're the ones that are highlighted in blue here. And we highly recommend Pinecone. It's the one that we've had a lot of success with.
Thank you.
And so there's a growing list of use cases. So you see this first one, RAG, retrieval augmented generation, kind of dominates the market. But others are becoming more and more common. So there's a bunch on the rise, and this slide may even be out of date as we're talking about it.
Fantastic. AI orchestration and decisions for SAP solutions. So this might be where some of the magic starts to take place, I would assume.
Yes, it is. Thank you for that. So we're getting very close to a demo, right? So what is AI if you can say it, orchestration?
Right.
It's a new term. I can't even hardly say it. But at the end of the day, it's being able to take AI components and add them into a business process, automating a workflow where the portion of it is utilizes AI. And we'll see this. Ashley will demonstrate this for us. So you might have daily processes that are predictable, and if a daily process is predictable, then you can leverage AI to fully automate that. But the nice thing about using a platform like Decisions or Decisions for SAP Solution is, you can automate things. I mean, we've seen automation as successful as 96, 97% of the time. But what about that 2 or 3% that it fails? Well, the nice thing about a technology like this is when it fails, you can notify somebody, you can tell them what the issue is, and let them resolve the issue right within the platform. So that gets you to 100%. You don't have to go somewhere and look for the failures. We can notify you that something didn't go as planned, give you enough information that you can resolve that issue.
Thank you, Stephen. I may ask a question. So, in your experience, Stephen, dealing with organizations that are leveraging SAP, I would assume that they may have other applications in their technology stack. And those other applications could have accounting details, could have customer information, could have product information, could have any of this information. And I would assume that orchestration could mean I could call into those other databases as needed, get that information, run it through a large language model, and then present it to somebody to do something with it.
Yes, but I would add to that, any of those other applications could trigger an AI workflow.
Gotcha. So it could be bi-directional. You could
Absolutely.
save, as a sales representative, I may need to go into Salesforce to look at something. I may need to go communicate with Ashley on something. I could automate all of that process and leave Ashley alone so she doesn't like to throw stuff at me when she sees me in person.
Exactly.
Nice. I might take you up on that.
Okay, so real quickly before we jump into the demo, some of the benefits of AI orchestration is just enhanced efficiency. We're taking away manual tasks, we're automating them. It's flexible, it's scalable. You can do a lot of processing behind the scenes, and you can improve the decision making, leveraging AI insights to make informed decisions with automated processes. So with that, I think we're ready to turn it over to Ashley and let her show her magic. Now, we'll qualify. Ashley's going to do a demonstration. She's going to show you a lot of steps manually, but everything she's going to show you can take place automatically behind the scenes. If we just demonstrated it automatically behind the scenes, it wouldn't mean a lot. So take it away, Ashley.
Yes, sir. So I'm going to orient ourselves around what we're looking at here. This is just a dashboard to manage invoices. Invoices that I need, anything that's pending, have to be confirmed and sent into SAP. So I helpfully have this SAP window here that we're going to use to navigate around. We'll notice that I don't have a goods receipt attached to this particular, this needs some kind of invoice attached to this purchase order. So what we do is there's a decisions workflow that is using AI orchestration, which I did get on the first try. I'll point out. It uses AI orchestration to send the PDF details, or it could be image details. It really could be any details coming in from that invoice, deserializing it into decisions. So breaking up that data in a way that we can essentially sanitize it and put it in to SAP. And how we do that is by some healthy prompt management. So this is the prompt that we'll actually be using here in this case. And I show this screen because you can upload a new prompt. Maybe conditions have changed. You have a new prompt with some new data that we're working with that needs to be brought into SAP. You can create a page specialized on this dashboard for managing what those prompts are. So it'll take some data in, like the line, the item, the description, quantity, and then you'll notice that the text starts here. So what we can do in decisions is dynamically pass in the data that this is supposed to represent. And if I need to update this prompt at any point or make changes to this one and make an overriding save over it, really simple for me to do. As well as just as a sneak preview, if I needed to view any kind of metrics around the invoices that were coming in, what's been confirmed into SAP versus what's been pending, me obviously taking the lion's share of the submissions here, if I needed to see who was submitting them and when, all of this detail can be available to me using the platform to organize it. But enough kind of talking about that. Why don't I take us through some invoice processing here? But I'm going to take us through a couple of examples of this. Stephen mentioned that we could automatically take this data in, and that's absolutely true. Another way that we can take in the data is by retrieving them from an inbox. So I'm going to have my friend Tim, well, rather Tim's inbox, I should say, fill in for me here. So what I'm doing is retrieving all of the unread emails that have come in from my inbox with Tim, and they'll load up in here in just a minute. Aha, here we go. So with that, what I can do is immediately begin processing on, oh, and the other one just came in as well too. Thanks, Tim. So what I can immediately do is start processing on these invoices, but it's not just one click of a button where I don't have visibility. I need to be able to take in, let me pull this other one here. I need to be able to take in this data and start looking at the invoice itself, as well as the data that Decisions is, again, deserializing. I can get the line item, the line number, rather, the item name, description, if I needed to add any kind of comment. Maybe something a little nice. Quantity, all of this data. And I can start seeing here what I'm going to expect, like what the extended price should be. I know these letters are, or rather these numbers are small, but I'm expecting somewhere around 75 or 72 with these items because of the quantity and the extended price as well. So the magic starts when I hit the submit button. What we're doing is this is sending that data into SAP now. So I have my purchase order item. If I needed to review this case a little bit later, like if I needed to come back and see what happened in this particular case, I'm able to view the completed form back again as well. So all the details get preserved. If I wanted to give an avenue where this could be updated or changed, of course I could, but having the ability to view this in hindsight is always a benefit as well. So now what I want to be able to see here is if I go into SAP, I can view in what those details are. Let me do a quick refresh though while I'm doing this here. Peachy. So before this didn't have an invoice receipt in here. Once I gave it a quick refresh, I can see that the invoice is here, but that's not all I can see. Just as expected, I have all of my pieces in from the invoice as well. So it pulled right from that document, the amount, the quantity, popped it right into SAP for me. And I can view what all those details are as well. Very, very handy tool to have. And this can also happen in a more manual fashion if I need to as well. For example, maybe I want to give this dashboard user a way to just upload an invoice just straight from maybe whatever files that they're using. So I'll just go quickly off screen and use a secret file here that you've just seen me drag and drop to the screen. And I can submit the invoice this way. Now I have all of these assignments triggered to me, so you'll have it give me this pop-up here. But notice it's the exact same process. So the point being that you can take away this pain of if I have a bunch of different ways that I can receive this data, that means I have to have a different way of processing it. No, you can use this all in a single workflow, whether it comes in from email, comes in over an API boundary, comes in manually like you've seen me here, and I can submit it and it all follows through to the same place, uploading into SAP. So that'll take me, that actually takes me to the end here. My goal was to illustrate how you could use that AI. You've seen the AI take in front of you that invoice, deserialize that data into decisions, all using these handy prompts as well. So just touching on what Stephen brought up, and Jeff, of course, with his helpful questions. What they brought up earlier, you can see that the proof is just in the pudding, as it were, and how you can just manage all that using some simple automation workflows.
So actually, I may pause you there for a second and ask a question if possible, but like, and Stephen, feel free to jump in here too. So if I was an SAP user, right? If I'm a large manufacturer, distribution, logistics, obviously there's going to be some invoices going on behind the scenes. I could hire people, I could hire individuals to do exactly what Ashley's done and have to deal with a fully burdened FTE. Or I could build an automation here and have the system do it and have the system look at this data and to import this data into SAP. Is that fair?
Yes. And even so, it's very common now for invoices to be emailed to some inbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the scenario is it goes to the inbox. We have a scheduled job that picks up those invoices. It looks at the invoice. It identifies, in this case, the purchase order number and the line or line items and the quantity. We can go query SAP and say, hey, has this been received in? Maybe you're receiving in a finished good or raw material. Or that you're being invoiced for a finished good or raw material. Well, you don't want to pay that invoice if it hasn't been received in. So we can verify if it's been received in. Maybe it's a duplicate invoice. Maybe you've already received it. All of those business rules can be managed. And in that event, that would fall into the exception category. So we could notify a team or a group of people, hey, this is something you need to work on. Here's the information that you need. It's already been invoiced before on this invoice number, whatever the case may be. But all things being equal, it's been received in, it's not been invoiced before, receive the invoice and then communicate via email or however you want to communicate that information back to the audience.
Fantastic. Thank you. So what are we looking at here? I think you're on mute, Stephen. Sorry.
Yep, sorry. I actually should have hit this slide before our demo. I apologize. This is actually one of our components within Decisions. And
Gotcha.
I'm gonna let Ashley kind of speak to exactly what this is and how we utilize it.
Yes. So as far as we had a page dedicated to this in the demo before,
Mm-hmm.
but any type of prompt management, like you can use this as a centralized hub to maintain and keep those prompts. So you can see that there's a couple of examples that are here on the side where there's the different AI modules that are in
Mm-hmm.
Decisions now. But with for Dart, for example, that Copilot where it acts more like an agent, you can save and retrieve these prompts and use it in that agent management just from the screen. So you can type it in, any variables that you see on the screenshot there, you can pass them in dynamically from a flow. All you have to do is just define them here. So it can become a place where you can hold all your prompts without them just living in a Google Drive somewhere. You can just keep it all in Decisions if you need to.
Actually, we do have a question. Is there a way to set it up so I send my emails to Decisions rather than have it comb the entire mailbox?
Yes, you beat me to it. I was typing in a response as you said so, but I'll just say it out loud for the benefit of the webinar. Of course, you can search through email by a number of parameters, whether it's specific buzzwords in an email, does the email body contain the specific phrase, if the email has attachments or not, kind of like what we did for this demo, if there's an attachment and if that attachment contains an invoice, or if they're just unread, like only pull in those unread emails. So if you need to route specific emails to Decisions that way too, you can use the workflow for something like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley.
You bet.
Now we almost need a drum roll for our product suite overview.
Okay, so again, thank you all for attending. So we've talked about Decisions for SAP Solutions, and the next few slides are all applications that are powered by Decisions for SAP Solutions. So Boppymatic. Boppymatic is it's an application that can read the metadata out of a Boppy and allow a tech-savvy functional user to create Excel templates for mass updating SAP through an Excel template. So it's a very simple process. We distill the metadata from a Boppy. The user maps the fields that they want to create a template for. You save that as a script, download that template. One of the nice things about Bopymatic is we also have folder management. So what that means is I can create a folder for specific personas, functional areas, or even right down to the transaction level if I wanted, or the object level. And I can control who has access to those folders. So I have a lot of control of who can do what, even though obviously I mentioned earlier that if you don't have access in SAP, you couldn't do it with decisions for SAP solutions either. Same thing with Bopymatic. But we can kind of minimize who sees what through folder management. Also, everything that's processed into SAP runs on the server. So if you're familiar with scripting technologies, they require you to install an application on your desktop and have a license for that, right? We'll take that data file and pull it into the server and process it from the server. So it's not tying up the user's desktop.
And I would imagine that if you're on a user's desktop, there's all kinds of management headaches that go along with those type of applications.
License management is probably the largest headache, yes.
Gotcha.
Okay, so Scriptonite. So one of the nice things about Bopymatic is it's very dependable, right? Because we're using programmatic programs to update SAP. We also have something called Scriptonite, and you may be familiar with transactional scripting, where you record a transaction, you map that transaction to Excel, and then you load it into SAP via, you complete your Excel template, populate it with data, and then load it into SAP. The problem with transaction scripting, although not everything has a BOPI, we use these things regularly, but they're very dependent on screen progression. So if you forget, a good example would be I'm going to create a sales order script to create sales orders. And so I create my script and I load my data and I start to upload my data and I get this very cryptic message from SAP that some DINPRO message. So something happened I didn't expect. You can't tell from the message what it is. Well, generally it would be something like when I did my recording, maybe I didn't include the available to promise screen. And so it throws up the available to promise screen, but it's not in my recording, so I can't, the program doesn't know what to do with it. So they can be problematic in that way. As long as you record them accurately with all of the variables that you need, they'll work fine. But also this Scriptonite runs on the server, so it doesn't tie up your desktop, doesn't tie up Excel while it's running in SAP. But again, Bopymatic kind of takes away those variables, but every now and then you need a transaction script, and so we have a solution for that as well.
Thank you.
And finally, or almost finally, Wingman is a project management tool. If you've ever used HP Quality Center, it's now called ALM. It's rather complex in nature and actually rather costly, but we have I'll call it ALM Lite. We can use this for project management tracking. We have a client that's using it for SAP cutovers. They do projects all the time. So their cutover tasks are managed through Wingman. So basically what you have is you have an Excel template. You say, here's the task, here's who's supposed to do this task, here's what I want you to do. It will notify them they have a task. And if you have series of tasks, it'll manage those series as well. But you can also use it for user acceptance testing. And within user acceptance, with the user acceptance testing module, you can have defect management. So you can tell someone, let's think about a case where maybe you need to go create a material. Then somebody needs to go create a vendor. Then somebody needs to create a purchase information record for that. Then somebody needs to go create a PO. You can have all of those in series. But if something failed, maybe your master data wasn't good, you could fail that task. A team is notified. Once that task is corrected, it goes back to the user to say, please continue your testing. Rinse and repeat until you complete the task. And all along the way, we have an interactive dashboard. So the next slide shows what a dashboard might look like. And so the dashboard is going to show you how many scenarios you have, how many steps in those scenarios you have, what percentage of completion you have, and then you've got these little pie charts, and you can click on any one of those pieces of the pie, and it'll give you the detail behind that portion of the pie chart. So very useful from an overall project progress perspective.
So this could give me visibility into materials needing to be ordered, materials that need to go through the manufacturing process, invoices that needed to be sent, sales that need to be created. This could show me where I'm at in that process at any given point in time.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And proactively notify those that need to know, right? And we have a product called Data Validation Management. This is an Excel add-in. If you're familiar with doing SAP implementations, generally speaking, your projects always start off behind, and they start off behind because of data migration. People generally think that, oh, we'll guess how long it takes to do data migration from our legacy system into SAP. And inevitably, there's not enough time allocated. And so when it comes time to validate data, those same users that need to validate that data are the same users that need to test that data. And they don't generally do a great job because generally it's some statistical value, statistical number. They'll say, hey, go look at 100 material records or 200 material records and tell me what you see. And based on that, they may tell them to go look at some more. But with data validation management, we can validate 100% of the data, and we can identify what didn't load correctly. We can identify what failed to transfer altogether. But another really nice byproduct is we can identify known good data for the users, because once the users test the data, the next thing you say is, hey, once they validate the data, you say, you need to go test the system now. And the first question they have is, what data should I use to test? So with data validation management, not only can you validate your data 100% of the time, but you can also identify the data that you know will work, that they can test with. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would assume that data validation management could eliminate that saying that we've all heard, crap in, you get crap out.
Yeah, because on a typical project, because it's very rare that 100% of the data is validated, you find out the bad data when you go live. It's too late. A real world example, we helped a client a few years ago with a purchase order migration. We did several other things, but this is the one that we used data validation management for all the things that we migrated for them. And there was like 30,000 purchase order line items that we migrated. And out of 30,000 line items, we found one error. That would have never been caught by users. That one error was a $12 million error, and it was not in their favor. So it's, validating 100% of your data is very valuable.
Yes. When you have a project like that, like into your example you just talked about, if you were doing that manually, or if you were doing that outside of the data validation management, what type of time constraints will we be talking about?
It's significant, and obviously it depends on the size of the project and the number of objects, but I'd argue on the low end, data validation is going to cost you around $100K on the low end, just in resources, time, and energy over the course of your project, because you don't just migrate data once. You'll do it 3 or 4 or 5 times, depending on how successful each migration is.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
And this is just a view of the dashboard within data validation management. Again, it's just a little Excel add-in. It's all .NET code. It's very efficient. You are limited to the number of rows of Excel, but if you're trying to validate 1 million rows, I would argue you need to break it into multiple sheets. But this same technology can be used inside of Decisions for SAP as well. Use a SQL database, and you have unlimited capability there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And then finally, as far as products are concerned, process mining. So we're talking about AI and automating processes. Well, it's really important to understand your process, and process mining can help you do that. So with process mining, it's not uncommon for us to think we know what our process is. But process mining can be integrated with your systems, or you can just put data into a spreadsheet and upload it, and you can evaluate your processes. And it's very, very common. People think, oh, I have 5 iterations of this process. And once they analyze, they find out there's 17 different iterations, and there's some opportunity to improve the process. So that's how process mining can help you really understand your process prior to trying to do AI automation.
And maybe you could use process mining for, say, doing some champion challenger on existing processes, or like if you were doing a merger with another organization and, you know, I could say my process is better than Stephen's process, and Stephen could say, no, I don't think so. We could put it in process mining and see firsthand whose is better.
Yep, absolutely. Great analogy.
Fantastic. I've seen this
Okay.
slide before. Tell me about this slide.
So we've talked about business. I didn't say a lot about business rules, but we have a very robust engine rule, business rules engine, and we leverage that across everything that we do. But we can do batch processing. We can help you extend and expand your current applications. But one of the things that we talked earlier about talking to different systems. So integrating with decisions is very, I would argue it's almost child's play, obviously, depending on how complex. But I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I had a client ask me if we could integrate. They had a homegrown PLM system. He said, can you integrate SAP to our homegrown PLM system? And I said, yes. And he said, prove it. So in about 30 minutes, I built a workflow, and with the click of a mouse, generated all of the code to talk to that workflow. I went to Postman, I put that code in Postman, and from Postman created a material in SAP. So integrating, so every now and then I'll do what I call a webinar called the 10-minute API. Literally, if you build a workflow, you can create all of the code with a couple of clicks of the mouse to integrate with any other system. And we have a lot of out of the box, like, you know, Salesforce, CRM, Salesforce, DocuSign. There's a lot of out of the box. But if you don't have an out of the box integration, another common one is address verification. So if you want to use the USPS address verification or Address Doctor or Smarty Street, there's a number of those out there. Building an API to work with those APIs is very, very simple with the Decisions platform.
Thank you, Stephen.
And this is our last slide, other than Q&A, and it's actually my favorite slide. So when we deliver, we say our technology is 100% web delivered, and what that means is you connect to our platform through any modern web browser. So there's nothing to install on a user's desktop. It'll work out of the box. We can install Decisions for SAP solutions and be talking to your SAP environment in less than 2 hours without you installing anything in SAP. The most common deployment is a Windows server with a SQL backend. It can be AWS, it can be Azure, it can be on-prem, whatever. Which brings us to our next bullet. It can be in the cloud or on-prem. It doesn't matter. For our SAP clients, we highly recommend it's your cloud or your on-prem, so that we're really close to your SAP environment to manage, mitigate latency. And then this last bullet is my favorite bullet. We have a subscription or a server-based license model. So what that means to you is you don't have to buy end user licenses. We don't care if they're a developer. We don't care if they're a consumer. We don't even care if they're in your organization. We can engage people outside of your organization in a workflow. So from a cost perspective, it's very economical. We don't limit you on number of processes. We don't limit you on number of users.
Thank you, Stephen. Now it's time for any questions and answers, or if you have any chat, we would be happy to share that with you or answer those for you as we wrap up. Ashley, you see anything in the chat box that we need to discuss?
Not yet.
Awesome.
At least nothing that hasn't been addressed yet.
So Stephen, in your years of experience, both with SAP and with Decisions, what is maybe a common theme that you've seen recurring as you brought these two powerful tools together and in your experience?
Well, the one thing I will say is we have never written one line of code for anything we've implemented. And so when you see, generally speaking, when you see the term no code, low code, what
Mhm.
that means is code. And even though you may hear us sometimes say no code, low code, we have a software development kit. If you want to
Mhm.
write code, you can. But I talked about earlier the configure price quote solution that we built. That's extremely complex. This customer had 8 million SKUs. It was a custom cabinet shop. They needed to select types of wood, types of finishes. Maybe a finish is only available for these types of cabinets, whatever the case may be. Over 8 million SKUs. And that was delivered in less than 6 months with one developer without writing one single line of code. And it's been a huge success for that company. So did
That's
that answer your question, Jeff?
That was great. That was a great answer. From what I heard from that is that, what we hang our hat on most of the time is that you're able to bring process or use case or functionality to the table, 5 to 7 times faster, 5 to 10 times faster than you would using traditional code language.
Yeah, and the more you use it, the more you
Mhm.
benefit because of its modular approach. As I mentioned, when I build a workflow for a dropdown, I only have to build that once. I build a business
Mhm.
rule that can be used across different processes. I only have to build that business rule once. A form, maybe I have a form that'll work across different processes. I build that form once.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I think that's it for our time today. As I messed up our presentation slide. So I would thank you for your time. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, if you would like to engage with Stephen, please reach out to Stephen at Configurable Management, and he will gladly show you how he can solve your challenges. Thank you very much. Have a great day.